All right. Yesterday, President Biden formally announced this American Jobs Plan, which is another Trojan horse that he is selling to the American people as something we need, when in fact it's all about the Democrats and what they want. Make no mistake, the president's plan will hurt the American family and millions of small businesses struggling to rebound from the pandemic and the economic downturn prior to that. Included in the $2.25 trillion package is an increase in corporate taxes, as we talked about yesterday, from 21% to 28%. Now, this is all being sold as infrastructure. Here's a little bit more of what the president had to say yesterday.
Put simply, these are investments we have to make. We can afford to make them. Or put another, we can't afford not to. So how do we pay for it? I spoke to the majority leader. I guess he's no longer the majority leader. He has been for a long time. I spoke to the Republican leader about the plan. Everybody's for doing something about infrastructure. Why haven't we done it? Well, no one wants to pay for it.
Well, how do we pay for it? To help us answer that question, Congressman Kevin Brady represents the 8th Congressional District of Texas, and he is the ranking member on the House Ways and Means Committee. Congressman Brady, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, and on Good Friday, it's always special to join you, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So how do we pay for this? Can we pay for it?
Yeah, the short answer is not this way, and we certainly don't need this amount of spending. Look, everyone agrees on more funding for roads and bridges, ports, and airports. But this is more pork than any of that. And frankly, it's more of that socialist agenda that they're, running on under the guise of infrastructure. And I think the worst part, well, there's a lot of worst parts, but I think killing local jobs to pay for it is the wrong way to do. $2 trillion of tax increases, the largest in half a century, on local businesses. It'll actually negate any economic growth from infrastructure. It's a net loser. No president has ever raised business taxes to recover from an economic crisis. This comes at absolutely the worst time. It'll sabotage the economic recovery. So that's why I think this is the biggest economic blunder in our lifetime.
Now, this comes right on the heels of nearly $2 trillion in relief that's not going to make its way through the pipeline, in some cases, for another 2 years.
For years, yeah. Yeah, neither will this, Tony. Look, infrastructure is notoriously slow, as we learned under President Obama and Biden. Shovel-ready rarely means shovel-ready, and that stimulus took almost 10 years to pay out. This will do the same, so it does very little to help us rebuild the economy from this. And again, look, when you are punishing local businesses with higher taxes at the very same time you want them to hire more, when you make America's tax rate for businesses worse than China's and on par with Syria, you are driving jobs overseas in a big way. But more importantly, corporations don't pay taxes. They collect them.
Right.
It's their workers, it's retirees that have got their nest egg in that stock. It is working families that ultimately pay the price here. And
That's
I
right.
always remind people, half of Americans work for these corporations, so you're going to bear the brunt of these taxes.
Right, they're going to pass them on. But
Absolutely.
instead of investing them in something else, in expansion, more jobs, they're going to be handing them over those dollars over to the government. So it's a dead end, as opposed to having a multiplier effect in the economy where they hire new people, they go out and spend money. It doesn't happen that way when the government takes it.
No, it doesn't. Government, as you know, has sticky fingers, and rarely does that money go to where it can do the best for the country. We knew that in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We lowered rates for families and businesses. We redesigned the code so our American companies could compete and win anywhere in the world. And suddenly you saw jobs in manufacturing, 500,000 manufacturing jobs come back to America. You saw the lowest poverty rate in American history. The same year, we saw the highest family income in American history. So when you turn American businesses loose, they create jobs, they tackle poverty, they give people opportunity. Washington doesn't do that.
Right. Let's, Congressman Brady, let's talk a little bit about the specifics of this, because it's being portrayed as an infrastructure bill. And my understanding, it's about 6% of this actually goes to infrastructure. I mean, to me, this is kind of like dog doo-doo wrapped up in a Tootsie Roll wrapper. It's not what it is being sold as.
Infrastructure like broadband and schools, but you got $400 billion for Medicaid, nothing to do with infrastructure. More local housing, electric vehicles, a ton of money for electric vehicles, more school funding, although we just gave them $130 billion, a bunch of new government offices. So the way they think they spur economic development is create new departments in the bureaucracy. And of course, you've read about this new civilian climate corps, which, heaven knows what they're going to be doing. But my guess is not making America more competitive.
So this is, it's not obviously the full wish list of the left, because your colleague AOC is not happy. She says it's not enough. But this clearly is not what the American people need and what the vast majority of American people want. It's only what the left is looking for.
It is, and I think, and Tony, you've been and watched and engaged in Congress. Thank you, by the way, for your huge help on tax reform in so many areas for families and pro-life issues, and repealing the Johnson Amendment. You were just an amazing leader there. But this is about advancing the socialist agenda, and I think Speaker Pelosi's decided she is losing the majority in 1 year and 7 months. Mm-hmm. She's determined to jam as much of the socialist agenda through right now. And our big fight, certainly in the House, is Republicans, put up the biggest fight, make the greatest argument, shore up the Senate Republicans so they've got the opportunity to stop these dangerous ideas when they get there. So,
Congressman Kevin Brady, what should our listeners be doing now? I mean, this is, you made a very good point. They've got, a year and 7 months, and they know they're going to lose the majority, in part because of the radical stuff they're pushing, but they were already on thin ice when they won it. So they're going to try to push everything they can through in this 1 year and 7 months, and they're already doing it. I mean, this stuff is coming rapid fire. What do our people need to be doing?
Yeah, so shore up and thank the Republicans who are standing against these socialist ideas, because in the House it is unanimous, 100% opposition to this agenda. But a lot of your listeners live in districts represented by Democrats. You've got to be engaging. You've got to be speaking out. You've got to go to the town hall meetings. You've got to explain. You've got to resist these dangerous ideas with those Democrats, including if you have a senator who's a Democrat, boy, they ought to be hearing from you in a big way.
Is this going to make one of the things that Joe Biden has said, and Democrats, Chuck Schumer has said, hey, Republicans want infrastructure. This is a bipartisan thing. And so how I see this is there's a sliver of something we can all agree upon. But as I said, it's wrapped up in so much other stuff. They're going to make it all about the one element that you agree upon, and the other 95% is, as you said, total socialistic spending. Part of that is educating the public that, look, yes, we want infrastructure. Let's pull that part out. We can agree on that. We'll go forward with it, but not with all this other stuff.
Yeah, and Tony, that's exactly right. They already ran this play once. The COVID stimulus had very little to do with COVID and nothing to do with stimulus. It was, as you said, just that Trojan horse. That play worked for Democrats in Washington, so they're running a second one under the heading infrastructure. And I think that's where, moderate Democrats are hoping to hide under the infrastructure banner, but their votes for such a radical agenda and these tax increases on local families and businesses, I hope we pull the curtain back so that every voter knows where their representative stands.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just when you think of this package, think of the Tootsie Roll. That's what you got to think of.
I will do that.
All right, Congressman Kevin Brady, as always, great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tony. Take care.
All right. Have a great weekend.